Have you ever wondered what life was like for slaves on plantations in the 18th and 19th centuries? This question invites us into a world far removed from our present day, a world shrouded in shadows of hardship and resilience. It's a world that many prefer to shy away from, yet understanding it is crucial to appreciating the freedoms we enjoy today. So let's get it. Now imagine plantations across the American South, vibrant with fields of cotton and tobacco. Now envision the countless individuals who worked these fields, their lives dictated not by their desires, but by those of their masters. Because this was basically the life of a slave on the plantation. The complexities of their existence extended far beyond labor. Slaves were not just workers, they were human beings with their own culture, languages, and families. Yet, these aspects of their identities were often suppressed or outright denied in the pursuit of profit. The general perception of slave life on plantations is often a monolith, a single narrative of suffering and oppression. While there's no denying the immense hardship slaves faced, their lives were also marked by resilience, creativity, and a relentless pursuit of freedom. Intriguingly, one of the lesser-known aspects of plantation life was the breeding of slaves. This was a practice as inhumane as it sounds, with human beings treated as livestock. Their reproduction was controlled to increase the slave population, and thereby, this helps the plantation's profitability. So it's a chilling reminder the lengths to which some would go in the name of profit. Yet, in the face of such adversity, these slaves found ways to resist and maintain their dignity and to keep hope alive. They sang songs, told stories, and forged communities, and this provided some sanity amongst all of the chaos. The life of a slave on a plantation is indeed an enigma, a complex story with threads of pain, resilience, and hope. It's a narrative that demands our attention, for it's only been acknowledging the darkest chapters of our history that we can truly appreciate the light of the present. As we delve deeper into this topic, we unravel the enigma that is the life of slaves on plantation. The life of a slave began with a journey none of them volunteered for. This journey, known historically as the transatlantic slave trade, was a complex and chilling system of human trafficking that spanned over 3 centuries. From the coast of Africa to the shores of Europe, the Americas, and the Caribbean, millions of lives were altered. Imagine being forcefully took from your home, your family, your land, and then packed like sardines into the belly of a wooden ship. The Middle Passage, as the transport was called, was a nightmare of unimaginable proportions. Men and women were crammed into the dank, dark bowels of these ships, shackled together in a space so cramped there were hardly room to breathe. The conditions aboard these ships were horrifying. Disease was rampant, smallpox and other illnesses claiming countless of lives. The air was thick with the stench of sickness, sweat, and fear. Food and water was scarce, and the captains were given just enough to keep them alive. The cruelty didn't end there, though. The captains were routinely subjected to brutal physical abuse, mental torment, and other inhumane treatments at the hands of their captors. These voyages across the Atlantic were not just journeys of physical distance, but journeys into a terrifying unknown. Each day and night was filled with fear, uncertainty, and a desperate longing for freedom. The resilience of these individuals, their strength in their face of unimaginable adversity, is a testament of the enduring spirit of humanity. This was the beginning of the uncomfortable and brutal beginning of slave life. The Middle Passage was the gateway to a life of servitude, a life where their fate was not their own. Once they reached the New World, their life on the plantations was about to begin. Upon arrival, the slaves were thrust into a life of hard labor and unimaginable cruelty. Their homes, far from the comfort and warmth of family life, were typically cramped structures, often shared between several families. Meals were scarce and often nutritionally deficient, consisting mainly of cornmeal and salt pork. During the day, the slaves toiled under the relentless sun, their backs bent in labor, their hands blistered and raw. They planted and harvested crops, built and maintained the plantation infrastructure, cared for livestock, and catered to the whims of their masters. The work was grueling, the hours long and the conditions merciless. Slaves were expected to work from sunrise to sunset and often well into the night during harvest season. The harshness of their existence was compounded by the brutal treatment they received. Physical punishment was a common occurrence. Now, the whip, it was an emblem of terror and control, was frequently employed, its sharp crack echoing through the plantation as a grim reminder of their servitude. Yet it was not just the physical abuse that was unbearable. The psychological torment was equally devastating. Slaves lived in constant fear and uncertainty, their lives dictated by the whims of their masters. They were denied basic human rights, treated as property rather than individuals. Their identities, their culture, their languages were stripped away, their humanity dismissed and disregarded. The breeding programs were as calculated, as cold as they sound. Often, strong, young, enslaved men and women were paired off by their masters, their sole purpose to produce more slaves. This was not about family or love. It was just a cruel business transaction. The repercussions of these programs were far-reaching. They tore apart families, separating mothers from their children, husbands, and wives. Imagine the pain of a mother, her newborn baby ripped from her arms, destined to be sold to another plantation. Picture the torment of a father, forced to father children he would never be allowed to raise. These were everyday realities for the enslaved, a constant reminder of their dehumanized status. The emotional trauma inflicted by these practices was profound. It left scars that would be passed down through generations, shaping the psychological landscape of an entire people. It was trauma rooted in the devaluation of human life, in the systematic stripping away of dignity, identity, and anatomy. Even in their darkest times, they found a way to resist, to survive, and to hope for a better future. Resistance was a vital part of their existence, a beacon of hope in their dark world. Slaves often employed work slowdowns as a form of quiet defiance. This was a subtle art of appearing to work while doing as little as possible, and we still do that today. They would pretend to misunderstand instructions, break tools, or feign illness, all in the name of slowing down the pace of their grueling labor. These acts, while seemingly trivial, were a form of silent protest against their oppressors, a way to reclaim some control over their lives. Yet, there were those who dared to defy more openly. Acts of arson, theft, and sabotage were not uncommon. Slaves would steal food and other necessities, not just to survive, but also as an act of rebellion, a small victory in their constant battle against their master. However, the most potent form of resistance was the outright rebellion. These brave souls risked everything to rise against their masters. They organized convert meetings, planned their strategies, and even dared to attack the plantations. Names like Nat Turner and Gabriel Prosser echo through history as testaments to this courage. Their rebellions, though often brutally suppressed, sent shockwaves through the system, forcing society to confront the harsh realities of slavery. Yet it is crucial to remember the rebellion was not just about physical resistance. It was also about maintaining their humanity, their identities, and their cultures. They sang songs, told stories, and kept their traditions alive as a form of cultural resistance, a refusal to be completely broken by the chains of slavery. These acts of defiance were a testament to their spirit. They were messages loud and clear that they might have been enslaved, but they were not defeated. And in their resistance and rebellion, they laid the groundwork for the fight for freedom that was yet to come. The dawn of the 19th century brought with its wind of change, winds that whispered of freedom. As the calendar pages turned, the world began to shift beneath the feet of those ensured in the brutal system of slavery. A movement was building. A tide of humanity was rising against the inhumanity of the status quo. This was the abolition movement, a collection of courageous individuals who dared to challenge the entrenched institution of slavery. Abolitionists came from all walks of life. They were made up of free blacks who had tasted liberty and yearned for their brother to share it, white allies who recognized their inherent injustice of the system, and former slaves who managed to escape and their hearts still desire for others to have freedom. They wrote, they spoke, they rallied. Their voices, once whispers in the wind, grew to a roar that could not be ignored. In the United States, the voices reached the ears of President Abraham Lincoln. In the midst of the Civil War, Lincoln made a monumental decision. On September 22, 1862, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all slaves in the Confederate-held territories were to be set free. While this proclamation didn't immediately end slavery, it was a crucial turning point. It changed the narrative of the Civil War, transforming it from a battle over union into fight for freedom. It inspired slaves to flee their captors, joining the Union forces and fighting for their liberation. Finally, in 1865, the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, officially ending slavery in the United States. The chains that had bound millions for centuries were shattered. From the ashes of this brutal system, a new era was born. With the chains of slavery broken, a new era. It was a dawn of hope, a dawn of freedom, and most importantly, a dawn of change. The struggle was far from over though, but the first crucial steps towards equality had been taken. Looking back at the life of slaves on plantations, we are left with many unsettling questions. As we move forward to a new dawn, we must remember the dehumanization of the people. And we must remember this as we interact with others. We must see the humanity in every individual, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or status. And furthermore, we must learn about the power of education and knowledge. The slaves were denied access to education, keeping ignorance to maintain control over them. But knowledge is power, and this power can lead to liberation. We must continue to champion the right to education for all, understanding that it is a vital tool in the fight against oppression. We cannot shy away from the uncomfortable truths of our history, for only in confronting them can we hope to overcome them. We must continue to tell the stories of the slaves, to remember their struggles, their resistance, their resiliency, and we can use that to help us in today's time. If you made it to the end of the video, you liked the video, you felt that you learned something in this video, follow for more, like for more, comment for more. I got more on the way. Online University.